Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to the Sunday live stream where we talk about photography and what's new, what's been happening, and it's always good to see everyone here. Let me pull up my chat window for a sec. And Christine, good to see you. And I haven't I have tried the OM1 with the 12 to 4. It just open this right up. Um, she had a question here. Has anyone tried with the 12 to 40 Pro and the 50 to 140? And definitely on the 12 to 140 Pro. I have the original one, not the version 2, but it works great. And um, it definitely focuses a lot faster, both in photo mode for stills and the frames per second, and also in video. It seems to focus faster. So uh, definitely, it's if with this camera, the better the lens you put on it, the better it's going to perform, right? It's very, very dependent upon the lens, and that's really always been the case forever, right? You have a good lens, the camera body is less important. You'll get better images with a better lens. And I have not tried it with the 40 or 50 to 140. I'm not sure. You probably meant the 40 to 150. You got that backwards, but no, I don't have that lens, so I haven't tried it with that one. But anyone else wants to answer or help her out, that's fine. And John Matthews, first one in. Awesome. And Archie's here. And John follows. Good to see you. Music Sound Gear. Seth, hi, good morning. Has a question. Is shooting speed the sole difference between the Pro Capture mode and the Pro Capture SH2? There's one other difference is in Pro Capture SH1, you have to pre-focus. It doesn't continuously autofocus while it's capturing images. But other than that, that's the only difference. And I think that's why the ProCapture SH2 has a lower threshold for frames per second. And honestly, I don't, I'd be surprised to see if any lens can keep up even at 25 frames per second in continuous autofocus, let alone 50 frames per second is which is the limit. And I don't know if there's any way I can test that um, effectively or consistently. But, I found really 10 frames per second for most things is pretty okay. I mean, there's certainly a need for faster frames per second. Um, you know, but just about any lens will handle 10 frames per second. Any of the well, let me rephrase that. I found honestly the the prime lenses, like the 45 the f1.8 lenses, the 25, the 45, the 17, the 75. I've tried all three of those lenses with the 25 frames per second, 10 frames per second. They have a hard time keeping up at 10 frames per second. I even if I back it off to 5 frames per second, that's when I start to get a better hit rate on the continuous autofocus. The The 75 to 300 lens, the kit version, it's like a $500 lens. That one can handle 10 frames per second. It may go a little higher. I haven't tried it at 15 or 20, but at 10, it's definitely keeping up with the camera's continuous autofocus. And then, of course, the 12 to 40 Pro, I've seen my initial impression is 25 frames per second is pushing it, but I think it's keeping up. But like I said, I haven't tried 50. Um, Mainly because I just don't want thousands of images on my card to sift through, uh, when I'm just doing my initial testing. Now, if I wanna test specifically for 50 frames or 25 frames, I will do that in a separate video. But for just general shooting and going out and seeing how the camera performs, I don't want I wanna keep everything at the lowest common denominator and say, "This is where I was able to get the camera to perform reliably." And then I'll step it up and start pushing the limits in future videos. So That's one of my goals. It's always one of my goals, but I really do want to start making more tutorials and more in-depth videos, a lot like I did when I started the channel with the EM10 Mark II. And the reason I've never really done like in-depth tutorials on like on the EM1 series or the now the OM1 is because my impression was that people buying these cameras, this is not their first time, right? They're probably upgrading from an EM10, EM5, etc. And me just putting out a beginner series or in-depth tutorial on these cameras wouldn't wouldn't have much traction or interest because I just made the assumption that people would really already know how to use these cameras pretty well and get up to speed very quickly if there is any kind of uh, points or parts of the camera that are new. But I've been watching the live streams that Olympus Systems has been putting out, OM System, and there's a lot of questions there that would come up on any camera. Questions that are really for people from people. I mean, they're very beginner questions, very basic questions. And some of them, there's a lot of good questions too, but a lot of them are very, very basic, simple questions showing me that people buying these cameras still, you know, uh, are looking for a lot of help with the camera. So I need to throw out my preconception that people buying this camera are already pretty well experienced and very good with their cameras already and can get up to speed very quickly and go with the assumption that everybody buying this camera is brand new to photography and looking to learn to use the camera and take advantage of all of its features. Because even when I've done videos on the EM1s in the past, it's like 90% of the video, most people already knew those features and they find one little nugget and they'll watch, 20-minute training video for one little nugget. And that's what I'm trying to avoid is just wasting people's time. But apparently, um, people will watch it for 20 minutes to find one little nugget, and people will watch to get everything they can starting from scratch. So um, that's you're gonna see more videos like that coming out. Because I always felt like in the past, the EM10 Mark II is an entry-level camera. A lot of first-time buyers are gonna be buying this camera, and, hence, I made a lot of videos on that. But apparently, people buying the OM1 or EM1 Mark III or EM1X still need very basic introductions to these cameras, and to the introduction to the features and how to get into them and take advantage of them, uh, and I'm happy to do it, because these are wonderful cameras across the entire lineup from the EM10s up to the OM1, and I don't want anybody to have their camera sitting on the shelf collecting dust because, it's just too intimidating, too many buttons, too many menu selections, or too many features that, have too many options, and that's one of the downsides of our Olympus cameras, and this has been true since the OMD series came out, is they they make the menu so granular. I mean, you can fine tune a little bit of everything, right? Here and there. And there's other camera systems where like the autofocus, the menu system is pretty pretty straightforward. Continuous autofocus with tracking. There's not a lot of other settings, right? Uh and it just works. Whereas with the Olympus camera, it works great with default settings, but if you can tweak it a little bit, help the camera out a little bit with exactly what you want to shoot, you can get a lot better performance out of it than just the default settings. And that's something that over time I'll learn how to use more and more and have some examples of the kind of photography you'd use these features in. Because I'm not a terribly diverse photographer. I mean, I'm all over the place, yes, but I'm not particularly good at any one thing except for, my architectural stuff, my real estate stuff. That I'm pretty straightforward and that's simple. You get your line straight, your horizon level, and you're pretty much set. There's not a lot of complicated things to do in that kind of commercial photography when it comes to using the camera. Now, lighting and exposure and all of that can get complicated, but the composition itself is very straightforward. But anyhow, let's see who else has come in here. Roman, good to see you, and Christine is here from Munich. And let's see, Rob's bird pics are so sharp. The bird eye detect works better than human eyes detect. It is a camera for birds wedding, not human wedding. Very useful. Okay. Uh, they're okay. I mean, considering the lens I'm using, I'm getting really good shots. I mean, I'm using the 75 to 300, right? Which is sort of an entry level zoom, and I really do get pretty good images out of it. But there's a lot of processing on top of it too, though. I'm using Topaz Sharpen, Topaz Denoise, and then when DxO supports the OM1, I'll be using that, and that will give me even better results. I hope. I mean, up to this point, DxO is the clear winner in terms of cleaning up images. But I will tell you that I like Topaz Sharpen AI because it does reduce the noise in a uh, very intelligent way. Okay, it's probably not as good as the Topaz Denoise, like the dedicated software. But if you're shooting at reasonable ISOs and not trying to clean up, a train wreck, uh, Topaz Sharpen AI does a fantastic job at sharpening the image up and getting rid of noise. And I found that's worked really well with a lot of my images up to 3200 ISO. And I haven't needed to use anything else on my OM1 files. But of course, if I go to DxO, uh, when it is supported, hopefully it'll have the same performance with the OM1 as it does with the EM1 Mark III. And I don't see why it wouldn't, but you never know, right? It's different camera, different algorithm, all of that. Uh, but thank you, Roman. I appreciate that. I try to get good images, and I'm cherry picking, obviously, the ones I post online. But I can tell you, I could pick almost any one out of the series of images, like because using the continuous shutter. 80, 90%. I could have picked any one of those in terms of sharpness, right? Uh, but I picked the one that I thought had the most interesting, wings and composition of the image. But I could have picked any one of those and gotten a good image. That's what's really different about this camera is my keeper rate or the images that I have in focus when I'm shooting birds in flight is much higher. I mean, I was struggling with getting 50% with any other camera I've used. And I didn't do a lot of bird photography. And, Matthew Gasquet over there at Mirrorless something, Mirrorless, I forget the name of his website and channel, but, he's getting 90% hit rate with the EM1s, you know? Uh, so I don't know if he'd go to 95% with an OM1, but his hit rate is so good already. Upgrading for him may not be as dramatic as it is for me, right? For me, going from an EM1 to an OM1, the hit rate was very dramatic. It's much higher. So, because like I've always said, photography is about your skill set really, and not about the camera. And if you have a very high skill set for any particular genre, the camera is less important. All right. Wade is here. David Black, good to see you. Southern Indiana, nice. I've never been to Indiana. And Jonas, good to see you. Brian Allison, David Tellett, good morning. Plato, good to see you. Lassie, good. Jeff Painter, wow. Lots of good people here today. Robert's here and CNH, good to see you. Oh wow, these are old because man, there's a lot of chat today. Um, Let me just slow down a bit because I'll be here all day saying hello to everybody. So hi everybody. I really appreciate you being here today. And these streams are really the highlight of my day, and I look forward to doing them, even though I never have anything planned. I mean, I just turn the lights on and hit go live, and I'm what you see is what you get, right? But I was thinking in the future, maybe once these tutorial videos are starting to come out, is to have a live stream to follow up and do a live Q&A on the previous video. So I'll do tutorials, say, on the shooting menu and the computational features, and then uh, people can leave questions in the comments. But a lot of times, if I go live and I can show you on the camera directly, that would be better, right? Because I can just switch cameras like this, boom. Uh, I got everything set up. I'm like really fancy over here with my streaming gear, but I never really take advantage of it as much as I should. Turn that off. Okay. But anyhow, wow, thank you, Zam. 100,000 subscribers. That would be awesome for me in a very specific way. Um, is the it's really the only collateral I have as a quote unquote influencer, content creator, YouTuber, whatever acronym you want to use, that gets me access to more gear, right? Because right now I do get a lot of offers for gear, but most of it's just kind of mediocre stuff that I don't see any point in reviewing. Uh, like I've gotten several offers on more microphones and those external monitors that you can use. And I've done a few videos, on microphones and monitors, and they never performed well. They do okay, right? But it just seemed like unless I see something particularly interesting or different than what I've done before. I mean, I've done 7-inch monitors, 5-inch monitors. The only difference now is now they're coming out with touchscreen monitors, which, okay, you know, I don't, unless there's something really special about it other than that, I don't see a point to get a monitor and review it just because it has a touchscreen now. Um, or microphones. I'm very happy with the microphones I got a couple of years ago and did a review on. Um, and there's a lot of microphones that have come out since then, but they're pretty much the same thing, right? And every now and then I'll get a good lens to review, like the 50.95 was cool, and the 23 1.4. Those were cool little lenses and cheap and affordable, and I think great options over buying, an equivalent lens if they exist, uh, and save a bunch of money and get decent quality. It's not Olympus manufacturer, original OM equipment, but it's a third or a quarter of the cost, right? Um, but yeah, 100,000 subscribers this year. That would be something. Oh, hey, David, how are you? David Crooks went to DC yesterday with some Luminar sales or education director. That was cool. I wish I could have gone. But you know me, I just don't like going into DC. They were photographing the cherry blossoms. I did check out the photos that have been submitted to the group. They look awesome. A lot of great photos in there of the cherry blossoms and things. And there was a time when there wasn't anything like there weren't speed cameras. There wasn't. red light cam there wasn't a bunch of different kinds of traffic enforcement, automated traffic enforcement things in DC. And parking was a little bit more liberal, you could just almost park anywhere. Not anywhere, but you could park a lot of places in DC without having to drop 3, 4, $5 an hour. Ugh. So, and then you add on the recent, uh, or let me rephrase this, my paranoia of being shot in DC, whether that's, legitimate or not is up for debate, but I'm just scared to death to go into DC. Uh, I just, I just see too many stories. I mean, I have enough gunshots right around where I live that I don't need to go into the inner city. And I mean, DC is a beautiful, beautiful place. Beautiful, amazing museums and monuments and all that stuff. But when they started having all of those the the protests and demonstrations and it just makes traffic unbearable and unpredictable, and you could be stuck. Ah, but don't let my fears stop you guys from going out and enjoying what's really there, beautiful city. And I I need to get over it. I need to get over that, and I need to get over not using Apple products maybe one day, which I need to talk about my computer. It's better than new now, but man, it was stupid. John Matthews says some are saying the video AF performance in the OM1, saying worse video AF performance in the OM1 than the EM1. Hope they can find a fix quickly as they might see some returns. If not, have you tested with walk around the tree? No. I do have that though. Uh, I've been going through my list of things here and scratching off and underlining things of things that people have been asking me to do. So it's gonna be cold this week. We had such beautiful weather last week, but I got two big problems this week. Wet weather being one of them. It's going to get well below freezing tonight and tomorrow night, and that just means it's cold all day long. And that, and I need to do my taxes and my mom's taxes. I like to get those done before April, just in case I run into any problems and I need to order another 1099 or something. I can get it before I have to actually file. Uh, and then I have another meeting I have to go to. So that I have a lot on my plate this week. But that's why I haven't. I would have done more this week, more tutorials or testing this week. But my computer, man. Um, let me let me just add this one thing though from John here about the video AF. Video AF on the tree. EM1 versus OM1. Okay. That people have asked me to test the AF performance, but not specifically video AF like that, which makes sense, right? That seems like a legitimate test. Um, oh, Adam Farb, how are you? um, Adam Farb runs the Facebook group, uh, the OM Education. Sorry, I can't remember the exact name of it, but Yeah, he's definitely I don't know if he's the founder or just moderates it, but um, it's a terrific community over there. I drop in once in a while because 'cause I'll get the notifications, right? And see if I can answer any questions, but usually you have somebody in there that's answered the question very competently, better than I would have anyway. Um, yeah, people like the way of explaining how you go about it, like, I know I'm just a guy with a camera, right? I'm not particularly special or trained or, you know, have any formal education in cameras or photography. I'm just enjoying the hobby. Um, I was lucky enough to be able to translate some of that into an income professionally, but that's a very specific skill set, right? And it's all about connections and networking. But for everything else, man, I'm just trying to get a decent shot every now and then, trying to learn how to use the camera. Yeah, not being a company tech gives you a different approach, definitely. Because I'm free to choose any camera system I want, right? Um, and 2,200 bucks for an OM-1. Think about all the cameras you can get at that price. There's a lot of cameras and a lot to choose from. And if I was an ambassador for any particular company, I wouldn't be able to enjoy that luxury or freedom, right? Not publicly anyway. And that's one of the reasons I've never worried about it, OM or Olympus or any company reaching out to me to become some sort of ambassador or have some official capacity with them because I don't want to be limited to just a specific brand. If something comes out that makes my job easier or does a better job for something very specific, um, I want to just use it and share with you guys my experience on why I'm using it. I haven't talked much about the Panasonic S5, but that up until now, I haven't really tested the OM1. Up until now, the video was superior in every way except autofocus. But for the video that I do, I don't need autofocus. I just set the hyperfocal distance and use that for the entire setup. But the being able to shoot 422 10-bit internal and have one file instead of it all broken up was a big deal. It really changed my workflow. Now the OM1 has 420 10-bit, which should give me pretty much the same quality. It won't have quite the same color depth, but that's not as critical to me as the dynamic range that the 10-bit will give me. And now it also creates one large file instead of breaking it up. So the advantage of being able to just bring this one camera to do it all, and it's smaller and lighter than my S5. I mean, I know on paper they're about the same. If I put the S5 next to this, there's only 100, 200 gram difference, right? But once I start tacking on the lenses, my God, it's a huge difference. Let me show you one. So this is the lens. Let me set these up the way I would use them. So on camera, right? I mean, you can see that with the lens, it's substantially larger. Uh, the front, when you look at them at the front, not a big deal from the front. And this is what what is so misleading sometimes when people talk about, oh, full frames are pretty much the same size now as micro four thirds. And yeah, when you hold the bodies together, there's not much difference, right? They're pretty much the same. But in practice, it's not. This is a 20 millimeter, which is 10 on micro four thirds. How come that's not line? Oh, I'm trying to put this lens on my OM-1. I was like, how come it doesn't fit? Idiot. Uh, this is a 7 to 14 f4. This is a 300-gram lens. This lens is probably about the same weight. I don't have to guess. I have a scale. Let's see what these weigh. Oh, now I can use this B cam. Uh, so you can't really see. Well, maybe if I put it this way. Yeah, now you can see the weight, right? It's not too much glare. Oh, there's a lot of glare. There. Now you can see it. So this is the battery in here. Okay, the battery's in here. So 1100 grams, right? 1110. 911. So it's only 100-gram difference. But and they both have, Arca Swiss plates on the bottom. But in terms of size, that 100-gram gets spread out quite a bit. See if I can zoom out. See how much further this comes out to the front? It's just not. My desk is a mess. This is not a good angle. It's not top down. But this feels like twice as heavy, even though it's only 100 grams more, just because it's just bulkier. And I use this now for my video work, and it's fine. But if I were to put another 100 grams on this camera, like use a different lens, I really need a dedicated I need to get like an f4 14 millimeter lens or 16 millimeter, and that's a little bit heavier than this one is. Um, I can tell you my gimbal's going to struggle a little bit with this. I mean, it's already struggles a little bit. I have to be a little careful with how fast I do my motions on my gimbal. But with this setup at 900 grams, the gimbal is fine. And if I were to get the 9 to 18 millimeter, that'll shave off another 150 grams off this camera. That's a lens I'm thinking about, is the 9 to 18, to replace this so I get less purple flaring and crap. Ugh. This lens, this Panasonic, it's served me well, but it's got a purple flaring issue that is it's just unreal. Uh, anyhow, that was a long that was a long thing to talk about why I don't want to be an ambassador or visionary or educator for any particular brand, because there's reasons I might choose a different piece of gear. But that's all I use this for. I've taken this out one time for a photo walk. I'm sorry, twice. I've taken it out twice for a photo walk. When I first got it 2 years ago, and that's it. Other than that, it's just been my video machine until I got this. This might replace it, but I'll have to test it. What I like about this now is I can import the files directly to DaVinci Resolve without converting them first. And that's that that's a huge time saver. If I was doing video jobs, every week, couple of times a week like I was last or 2 years ago, it'd be a no-brainer to switch to this, but at this point, I have to test it. And Seth is here, has a question. Good morning, Rob. OM1 Pro Capture question, is shooting speed the sole difference? Oh, I'm sorry, I answered this one. I did. I'm sorry. Somehow the chat thing scrolled all the way up. I'm just going down and seeing. Gigafish is here. Good morning. And that was that question. That was Adam's questions. Thanks, Rob. I was shooting birds in flight and Pro Capture 20 frames per second since Speed and H stunned me by shipping the long delayed one. Whoa. Oh, nice. 150 to 400. I'm wondering if 25F be able to keep up in CAF with birds detect. Man, I can't tell you. I'm so jealous though. I would love to have that lens. Wow, that's amazing. Um, maybe when you get out shooting with it, you can let us know in the next stream. That would be awesome. And what are my thoughts on the EPL5? I found one with a kit lens for 150. Think about it as a second camera. It's a little bit old. Let me just look at the specs real quick before I oops, wrong window. All right, it says here. Let me try my new window. Why is there nothing showing? All right. EPL 5, 16 megapixel. Okay, so it's got the 16. It'll go up to 25,000. It has shutter speed of 1/4000. And let's see what. So this is very, very similar to my EPL 8. Oops, you guys are not looking at the right page. Sorry. It's this one. So I was looking at the specs down here, over here on the right. And so 16 megapixels. So I don't really see any. 35. So the focus, okay, so it has an older focusing system. So the newer ones have like an 85, uh 85 point, I think. So a little bit older focusing system. So the focusing is going to be a little slower, definitely, because I've seen comparisons between like the earlier EPLs and the newer ones that have the newer autofocusing system, and there was definitely a difference in autofocusing speed. So sync speeds, let's see, 1080p, a BLS5, all right, 325. Okay. Um, so let's talk about this. I think I think other than the autofocusing, the camera is going to be a very competent camera to any of the other EPLs up to the EPL 10, you know. Uh And if you're not worried about if you're just doing single point autofocus and not trying to do tracking or continuous autofocus, this camera will be fine. I mean, I haven't tested the camera personally, and honestly, the tracking on every Olympus camera, even this new OM-1 is probably not it's not great, but uh single point autofocus has always been very good, just maybe a little slower on this camera. But it has the 1080p video, it has 1/4000th of speed shutter, and the ergonomics, I'm sure, you'll be able to work around. If you're not already familiar with working with a PL camera, uh, if that doesn't bother you, then and the lack of EVF, right? If those things don't bother you, it's just a form factor. I'm not knocking the camera. That's just a form factor, right? I think it's an awesome camera in terms of image quality and everything else. You're going to get excellent image quality out of that. I mean, I haven't seen improvements in image quality in any significant way since, the 16 megapixel sensor came out. Even the new OM-1 20 megapixel sensor, if you're shooting at relatively reasonable ISOs, 200, 400, maybe even 800, you're going to be fine. It's only when you start pushing ISOs up really high and you have to start, manipulating the image. Yeah, there's been some significant improvements there. But at base ISO or low ISO, I think it makes a wonderful second camera. For 150 bucks, I mean, tank of gas cost me that much. Well, not quite, but you see where I'm coming from. It's not that much to spend on what I think is a very capable camera. And I say go for it, especially because it includes the lens. All right. Uh oh, see, Robert knows. I'm not he's talking about the trip to DC yesterday morning. And let's see. At Rob and all, any suggestions for a bag for EM1 and 12 to 40 Pro lens, but can still get cameras in and out? Well, I can tell you a few things to look for, but not any specific bag. Okay, these are two bags that I own that are perfect for 12 to 40 and an EM1, right? Because you can fit the camera in here with the lens mounted and then maybe have some spare stuff on the side, you know. Maybe a separate prime. I mean, you can fit two lenses or even better, put a flash in here, a Godox TT350. And what I like about this bag, it has Velcro, but you can turn the Velcro on and off with these tabs. That's the inside. Hard to see, but there's a little divider here, right? But specifically, you see how when I close the bag, these come in and protects the camera from the elements when it's inside the bag. Also, the strap is stitched directly to the bag. It's not like a clasp, okay? And then I always like ones that have a little pocket on the outside here. I can I can stuff in here like my ND filters and things like that. But I wouldn't put anything expensive in here. But like I put my little doggy bags in here. And then it has side pockets, right? So you can put like a little mini tripod. This is how you travel, right? Little mini tripod on the side, or you can put in a power bank here, or power bank, and then of course inside has a fully zippered case here where you put your extra memory cards or This is where I would put my ND filters and microfiber cloths in. Okay, so that's this bag. So, and then of course the material is really good. I've had this bag for 10 years now. Well, 9, because I've been shooting since 2013, and it's held up extremely well. Uh, this is a low pro Messenger 100 for reference. I don't know if they still sell these or not. And let me show you a bag you do not want to buy. And I like the little handle here, so I can just pick it up very quickly. Okay. Then of course the strap is nice and wide, right? And has a nice rubber grip here, so it stays on your shoulder fairly snug if you just want to hang it over your shoulder like this. But I always do cross shoulder, right? This is a bag that I bought because the dimensions were very good. This allowed me to hold the camera with a mounted lens plus 2 more lenses and a flash. But you'll notice no out. Ooh, wow. Just in case, I don't know when the focus went out. Let me get my face in frame. All right, just in case, I'm using an EM10 Mark II actually for my streaming now. Uh, you'll notice there's no pocket on the back, right? So you can't just stuff things in here like coupons and flyers and maps and notebooks, for taking notes in the field. Nothing on the outside, which is a pain, okay? On the side here, you'll notice when I open the flap, it does not have the little flaps on the corners here that close and fold inside the bag to protect the camera from the elements. So I like the handle on the top, but when I pick it up, look at the gap when I pick up the bag. Okay, this leaves room for stuff to fall out. So make sure there's the folding flaps that go in. And then another fine detail is the strap is not stitched to the bag. It's held on by this little clip, right? And this gives you the advantage of a swivel clip, but this is a weak point, especially this cheap bag. It's all plastic here. And it's just not, it just doesn't give me that sense of security when it's stitched, really well directly into the bag. And this makes noise too, right? When you're walking around. So uh that could be another potential problem. I just hate this. It's very fiddly. And I've had these come loose. Somehow, especially this is plastic. This will probably break before it comes loose, but I've had metal clasps here which are even noisier. But the metal bent slightly somehow, and sometimes when I'm picking up the bag, it hits it at a certain angle and just unclips all on its own. And I've had my bag fall off my shoulder because of that. And that was an expensive bag. That was a Tenba, right? But somehow the clip bent just a little bit so that the clasp, somehow when it gets twisted at the right angle, it just comes right off. Uh, and then you'll notice this strap is much thinner, right? Uh, and there's no rubber lining on the inside. So it's very slippery on your shoulder. So if you put this on your shoulder, it can just slide right off very easily. So I don't like that. Uh, but when I bought this and I looked at it online, none of these things come through when you're looking at it online. You're just looking at the dimensions and the front pocket. And I'm like, wow, this looks perfect because instead of a single divider, now I've got 2 dividers, right? One there and one over here. So I can fit my camera and 2 lenses or a camera lens and a flash. stuff a few batteries in the front, and but no side pocket. So where where am I going to put my tripod? I have to put it inside the bag with the cameras. Scratching potential, right? This can scratch my camera gear up. Um, no back pocket for notes, So those are things. So this bag, I should just send it off to Goodwill. I'm never going to use it because it's just too many too many design flaws. The quality of the material, the padding, everything is fine. But those are design flaws in that bag versus the Low Pro, which is this was a $50 bag. And I like the zipper that it has the little nylon cord instead of just the metal. It uses a nylon cord, so it's just easier to grab, particularly if you have gloves on. You can grab this nylon cord a lot easier than you can the little metal clasp, lever. And like I said, the strap is a lot thicker. So dimension wise, just look for something dimension size like the Messenger 100. It's probably 8 inches by 4.5 or 5 inches on the inside. That's a good size for that specific setup. But all the little accessory things, 'cause if I don't want to use the Velcro, right? I can turn these tabs over and then opening and close it becomes silent. But it still has a buckle here that if I don't want to use the Velcro, I can just use the buckle instead, like so. And now, even if the Velcro, see this flap won't open because the buckle's holding it. And then I have the flaps inside. Anyway, I've gone through all that. This is probably my favorite bag of all time. And I don't use this, well, second favorite. My favorite bag is my Swiss Army bag. This one. I like this one because I can carry a lot of stuff in this. But this has a lot of the same features as my Messenger Pro, right? The strap is stitched into the bag. It's not like separate by clasp. It doesn't have the rubber, coating inside, but it does have this padding separate. And of course the handle. And this one has no Velcro. It's just buckle only, which is fine. Now, you'll notice this doesn't have the folding flap like that one did, but it has uh, a different way to protect the camera. You'll notice when I pick the bag up that the where the strap attaches covers that hole. Also, inside the bag, there's an additional flap that goes right over the top like that. So they've kind of made up for that design with a different way, with a different design methodology. And a rear pocket for my doggy bags or my notebooks. This has a zippered side pocket, which is nice. This is now you can put your I put like spare Arca Swiss plates and batteries in here. Uh, because it's zippered and secure. But on this side, it has a regular net pocket for just sliding my, you know, extra tripod in without having to put it inside the camera together with the bag. So this is actually my favorite bag of all time, but this is bigger than you probably need for just one camera and one lens. But if you get the Messenger 100 from Low Pro, that will be more versatile. It'll hold more than one camera and a lens. It'll hold a camera, lens, and a flash probably. So lots of Lots of things to look for when you looking for a bag. And not to sound sexist, but if you know any females that have a lot of purses, they can probably give you some additional tips when it comes to looking for a camera bag. You know, because they have to buy purses all the time, right? Uh, and I can tell you, they probably come up with a lot of the same rationale that I would if they're looking for a practical bag and not a bag for fashion, but practical, right? Something useful like a mom would have. Um, the only other thing I forgot to mention, and that's something this bag actually lacks, is the rigidity, right? This is a little bit, it doesn't have quite the rigidity that I like. So it's a little bit sloppy when I'm carrying it around and putting stuff in and out because it's just all cloth, right? There's a little bit of rigidity here on the bottom because the padding's very thick. But, if you're getting a wider bag, like a messenger bag, you want to check for the rigidity of the bag. So when you're putting your lenses and cameras in, they're not just all sloppy flapping around in there. They're nice and snug and secure when you put them in because you have enough rigidity. And that's the only, really only flaw with this bag is it doesn't have the rigidity that I'm looking for. So what I do sometimes is I put this in the back like so. This is just a white card that I use for my architectural real estate photography. This gives it the rigidity I need now. When I take it with me on my photo jobs. It's not necessary, but it's a little bit nicer when I have this in there, when I'm putting stuff in and out of the bag for the rigidity. All right, there's a whole primer on bags and how I choose my bags when I buy them. Hopefully that helps not just Adam, but many of you if you're thinking about getting a bag. All right. What kind of tea is that? This is a peppermint tea. Um, that's all I know. Organic peppermint tea. Supposed to help cleanse or detox you. I don't know how, but that's what they claim. I see 40 to 150 that the version 2 or the old one. Did you have a change to compare? No, I didn't have, did I have a chance to compare optically? No. I I haven't bought it yet. I'm still moving money around in my Swiss banks to be able to buy that lens. So, but when I get it, I will be testing it out. Maybe this week. But I gotta do taxes, and then I'll see if I can get it or not. Because I might have to drop some hard cold. Oh, that was weird. I don't know why why that went out. Let's see. Let me scroll up. I missed a lot of stuff here. Bear with me while I scroll through the chat. Uh, oh, John Truman came in. Good to see you. And okay, Rob Trek. Roman says, I watched a YouTube video about anamorphic lenses and how Batman is shot. How about starting a video shooting series? Then also KC will like you more. Who's KC? I don't know who KC is. Maybe if you tell me their whole name, KC. I can't think of anyone. I'll probably, I'll never buy an anamorphic lens because I'm just not a video guy. You know, I shoot video, but I don't do like short movies and films and things, right? Where an anamorphic lens would be a lot more interesting visually, right? Uh, Gigafish says, Google Glasses or from others that feeds off your camera with the live view and gives you an enlarged metaverse size view when shooting would be cool instead of, yeah, that would be cool. The only challenge would be is you can't use the EVF then, right? Because you'd have your Google glasses on. You may not need it. How would you control? That would be weird. Be neat, but be weird. It'd probably have a very specific purpose. That it would just be neat to see. I don't know how well it is in practice though. It doesn't make sense to me in terms of workflow. How would that work? Hi Rob, is there any reason my extension tubes work on my old EM5 but not on my newer EM1 All I get is black screen and no aperture. Okay. So the most likely reason is there's a let's see if I can zoom in on this. Where is it? How do everything's backwards. Okay. Up, down, left, right. Up, down. Okay, up. All right. Then left. If you look closely, right here, there's a locking pin or hole for the locking pin on the lens. Either you haven't turned, and then on the camera, there's a locking pin right here, right? Right here is the locking pin, right next to the button. See how that goes in and out? When you got a black screen, that means that locking pin is not fully extended back out. So either the how do I get into the frame here? Everything is backwards. Either the extension tubes have not turned all the way. So try just giving it a little bit extra twist and see if it'll lock in. And you can hear the locking pin click into the extension tube. If it is clicking into the extension tube, then the other problem is that the hole for the locking pin is not deep enough. So I've experienced that problem where the locking pin hole is not deep enough. So I returned the extension tubes and got another set, and this set was fine. This one is the I don't know, this evoking this was like a $20 set, very cheap, all plastic. But that's what the problem is basically that locking pin is not fully extending into the hole, right? And that's what needs to happen. Otherwise, the camera thinks that there's no lens attached or the lens is not properly attached to the camera. That's what the locking pin tells the camera, is that the lens is now properly attached, all the electronic pins are lined up, etc., etc. So either it's not turned or twisted all the way so that the locking pin is not aligned with the uh, hole in the extension tube, or it is aligned, but the hole in the extension tube is not deep enough. So if and it's probably plastic inside that hole on the extension tube. If you have a Dremel or something, you might be able to drill in a little bit. I mean, it's okay if the tubes are a little bit the hole's a little bit deeper than it needs to be. Um, but it's not good when the hole's not deep enough, right? So that's most likely the problem. Okay. Uh, oh, Vanelli didn't make it yesterday. Okay. And so let's see what this picture is. Oh, wow, that's nice. Um, David shared this picture. Wow, that's beautiful, David. Did that on Friday. Wow. Okay. Nice. Um, okay, that was from Wade. And oh, Randy's here. Hey, Randy, good to see you. Thank you so much for your recent donation. God, that was very generous. I really appreciate that. And anyone wants to support the channel or make a donation, the link is right here. Um, you can do PayPal. That's the best way if you want to support the channel and help me out. It's greatly appreciated. Trust me. Um, so John Matthews said, if I were you, I'd make sure the one performs as well. Video AF during, if you can get the 8 to 25 and have it double duty, yeah. Yeah, the 8 to 25 though, what's that, like $1,200 or something? Man, that's a chunk of change. And I don't use autofocus when I do video. So it's a non-issue for me. The fact that the autofocus is terrible on the S5 compared to like the OM-1. For any of my paid work, I just set the hyperfocal distance and that's then I don't have to worry about autofocus at all. Uh For everything else, I would just use my Olympus cameras. The EM1, the OM1 has excellent autofocus. But for my paid work, I fixed the autofocus. I set it at like f8 and focus 6 feet in, and that gets everything in focus for me. It's all there's a calculator for depth of field and hyperfocal distance that I use. But usually I do 6 feet f8 and at 20 millimeters, and that's good enough. And I've got it to where I can just walk it off. I don't need a measuring tape, right? I can just stand against the wall and walk back 6 feet. It, yeah, autofocus is a non-issue. And can an ambassador just be for photography? No, ambassador, visionary, whatever the title they want to give, they have different categories, right? At least they used to. They used to have like educators, Olympus educators, where I think Matt Seuss was an educator before. Uh, they may have consolidated all the titles as just one thing, but they used to categorize things. I don't know if other brands did that, uh, but it doesn't matter. I mean, you're still kind of committed to just one camera system, no matter what title they give you. You have to have some agreement that you're only going to teach or you're only going to show off that one particular brand, right? And I don't know what you mean by touch focus and tilting screen. Yeah, the OM1 has that. Uh, Mike says, I love black and white. Does it pay to buy a Pen F? Still crazy used. money used. I have an EM10 and no. The Pen F is really that's a camera that you buy really as a toy. The only thing it does that the EM1s and the EM10s do not do for black and white, well, there's two things very specifically. Is one, you can add a vignette to your black and white images, and it's adjustable to a heavy vignette, to a faint vignette. And the other thing it can do is add grain, low, medium, high. Uh, Other than that, there's no difference. If you just want to emulate the Pen F black and white profiles or monochrome profiles, you just adjust your highlights and shadows. I have a video on it. I can't remember the exact settings. Um, but you just adjust your highlights and shadows to match what the Pen F does with highlights and shadows, and you'll get the exact same image from your EM1s, right, or your EM10s. If you want to add vignette or you want to add grain, you can do that in OM Workspace software. So if you're looking to do black and white photography and you want to get the same kind of images, you can do that already with your EM1s and your OM10s with a combination of highlight shadow and then adding vignette and grain using the OM Workspace. Now, if you're like me and you like to do everything in the field, adjust the highlights and shadow. Oh, there's a third thing that the Pen F does. There's three things. This may be worth it, actually. Even though I think you can do it in OM Workspace. I've never tried it. I think this deserves. Let's see, I got a battery. This deserves mentioning on the Pen F. Can I get to the HDMI port? Yeah. It's on the right side on this camera. It's on the left side on the OM1 and EM1. On the Pen F, it's on the right side. Plug in. So I'll just show you. Is it plugged in or not? All right, there it goes. All right, so let's do this. All right, so let me go into the monochrome mode via the front dial. So now I'm in the monochrome mode using the creative dial, right? So I've talked about this. This is the vignette. Let me put a different lens on that will actually focus on something. All right, so so I can go in and I can add a white vignette or I can add a dark vignette. So you can't do this on the EM1s or OM1s, whatever, right? Whoop-de-doo, you can do this in OM Workspace. The other thing is the highlight shadows, which you can do on the EM1s, OM1s, whatever. Every Olympus Pen F, camera can do this. You just have to know what the settings are. I have it in my video. This is something that no other Olympus camera has right now, and that's being able to do a color filter and adjust the intensity. This is really, really, really handy in the field. When you take a picture, you can adjust this. Let me find something that has some color. Oh, what a color card. Right? So this color card, just so you can see, this is a normal color card, right? So if I want to, you see the difference, how the colors change? And I can adjust the intensity. I can back off how much green I want. And so this is a normal black and white, no filtering. I'm filtering the yellow. And let me go back to color. Down here are the primary colors: blue, green, red, yellow. Okay, just look at this row right here. So right here, this is the yellow tile right here. I can, oh, I'm like so not demonstrating this properly. Let's go to a red tile. This is the red tile right here. So right now I'm making the reds brighter. Whoops. But I can back this off, and now I'm making the red darker. Again, I'm looking at this tile right here that I got my finger on. Right there. Here's red. So I can make the red brighter, brighter, brighter. Or I can make the red darker, darker, darker. Let's go to the green tile next to it. This is green, right? So I can make the green brighter, brighter, brighter. Darker, darker, darker. And then let's go to the blue tile, which is here on the end. And I can make the blue brighter, brighter, or darker. This is really handy for like blue skies. And you want to make the blue skies much darker. You can do that using the this color wheel. And then one other setting they have in the Pen F is the grain, right? Low, medium, high. So no other camera has this. You can do this in OM Workspace. I mean, I think you can do everything in OM Workspace, but the fact that you can do all of it in camera, in the field. So I want to take this picture, and I have sort of a goldish blue logo here. I can go into the color wheel over here to yellow and see if I can make that. Yeah, right there. See? Now I've made this logo here a little bit more visible, as opposed to, look at that logo now, right? So I can do that, and then I can go in here. I can add a white vignette, and then go in here, and I can pull the highlights back. Let's see, let's make this a softer image. -6 +6, I think, is monochrome profile 1. And then I can just take that picture. And then maybe add some grain, right? Like a ton of grain. Okay. Uh, hey, green screen. Um, so if you like to be able to, and there's no substitute really for being in the field and seeing with your own eyes the scene and making the adjustments in camera right there in the field. And I think long term, over time, you'll be able to produce much more striking images uh, because you were able to make those adjustments in the field rather than coming back in the post processing and just guessing. And you'll be able to train your eye much faster with what you see in the field versus what you can do in camera or do in post processing using the Pen F. So, uh, the Pen F has three very specific things that you can't do on any other Olympus camera, and that might be why it's so popular for black and white photography. It's but like I said, I have a video showing how you can kind of emulate what the Pen F does using your EM10 or EM1. I can't remember what episode it is, but it's easy to find. You'll see it. All right. Uh wow. I'm like 25 minutes behind on the chat. I don't know. Is it better for me to like take time to answer a question or do I talk too much? And then I fall behind and I start missing questions. Let me know. If you'd rather me go into more detail like I just did about the bags and about the Pen F, I can. It's probably better than rushing through and giving a half-ass answer. But then there's so many questions, I miss them. Uh, had my Pen F for a few weeks now. Oh yeah, the focusing, yeah, it's very subtle, the difference. The Pen F, the Pen F is just because okay, what Plato's referring to is I've said in previous streams that the Pen F has the worst focusing system of all the cameras I have. But the differences are very minute, right? It's not like the focusing is bad on the Pen F. It's just not as good as anything else I've used. Um, and particularly when you get into low light and lower contrast situations, the Pen F struggles a little bit more. The continuous autofocus stresses the autofocus system quite a bit. And that's where you'll see the biggest difference is if you're continuously autofocused on something, you'll see the Pen F struggle a lot more. But even in single point autofocus, it's fine, but you'll notice it hunts a little more sometimes. And that's what I've noticed with the Pen F. And I think, like I said, it's not like on a scale of 1 to 10, right? You put the OM-1 at a 10. Let's say the EM5 II is like a 5. All right. The Pen F would be a 4. So it's not a huge difference between EM5 II and an EM Pen F. Um, but okay. I just wanted to address that because I have said that it's not as, it's the worst, but by that I mean it's a 4 instead of a 5. And the OM-1 is like a 10. It's like a huge difference. EM-1 Mark III is like a 9. It's really close, all of these things. Okay. Edward is here. Good to see you. Lysippus, good to see you. And Gigafish, you have to give me a little more information because sometimes you might be commenting on something I said 30 minutes ago. 1/4000th of a second. Yes, I think all the Olympus cameras do that. It's the silent shutter that can go up to 1/8000th, sometimes 1/16,000th. I think some go as high as 1/32,000th if you use silent shutter. It, so by SS, if you mean silent shutter or do you mean shutter speed? More commonly, I think it's referred to as shutter speed when you say SS. But mechanical shutter speeds, I think they all do 1/4000th and 8 frames per second. Yeah. So that must have been back when we were talking about the EPL5. I think it's a fine camera. And let's see, Plato likes his Pen F. Yeah, never clean your sensor in the field. If you're in the field, it's too late. Don't clean your sensor. Uh, yeah. Christine will tell you buying bags in real life, IRL. I had to think that through. I'm not familiar with a lot of the acronyms or short words that people use. I mean, I was supposed to go out happy hour with my brother-in-law, and he used the term LMK. So when he texted me and he said LMK, I was like, um, so I just text him back, okay, right? That's the only acronym I know is okay. But he texts me LMK and I text back okay. And then he texts me back the next day when we were supposed to go and he goes, I guess we're not going. And I was like, what do you mean we're not going? You know, he already canceled because we live far apart, so it has to be kind of coordinated a little better. And then I said okay, and he goes, "Well, that didn't mean anything to me." And I said, "Well, LMK didn't mean anything to me. You know, what the hell does that mean?" He goes, "Let me know if you want to go." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Anyway, IRL means in real life. So I'm getting better, but I'm still not uh Arco has 15 camera bags. I know we have some of us have an obsession with camera bags. I did for the longest time. I got so many bags. I don't think I have 15 bags. I bet I might. I might come close to that, but it comes down to just two bags that I use all the time. Uh, my gray one when I want to travel light, the messenger bag that I showed you. Uh, the Amazon bag that I used to really use all the time, I've relegated to just packing my flash gear. So I don't take that out as much, except when I'm going to do a photo job where I need lots of different kinds of flashes with me. So it just packs my flashes now. But the uh, the two bags I just showed you online, those are the two bags I use the most. Sorry, this was the comment I was reading when I was making that comment. Oh, this is back to KC. Camera conspiracies, maybe, is what you're referring to. Yeah, KC is the camera conspiracies guy. That guy, he cracks me up. Casey. Oh, I thought Casey was spelled with a C. What do I know? And CNH says, any experience with adapted lenses? When I had my A6000, I had fun picking up old MF lenses from garage sales. Was looking forward to trying this on M43s. Yes. Um, I like the Olympus OM system, Zuiko lenses. They've gone back to the original naming, right? Because if you look at where is it? Oh, it's kind of in the back now. I haven't taken it out in a while. But the Olympus Zuiko OM system, I gotta show you. I just gotta show you. All right, I'm gonna switch cameras here. This is an original. Um, this zoomed all the way. I don't think the close focusing distance is great on this. Let's see, it says OM system right there, Zuiko. So this is the naming convention they use now. And this is one of my zoom lenses. Uh, not a bad lens. It you push and pull, so it's an air pump basically. Well, dust pump. So there's a lot of dust inside this lens. Um, oh, I need to clean this. I hope that's not fungus. Damn it. I had this in my basement for a while. I forgot to bring it up and put it in my dry cabinet, so I think there's some fungus on it now. Ugh. Well, this wasn't a super lens anyway. I'm not too worried about it. So when you're adapting lenses, I like the OM System Zuiko lenses, vintage ones, because they're very, very compact. They're very small. I mean, I brought out the biggest one I have, so I'm not really demonstrating that, but they're very compact. They're very small for a full frame lens. So they're nice complement to the Micro Four Thirds, and they look good. They look really good on the camera. So aesthetically, they're. I wish I had one sitting out. I haven't shot with one in a while. That's why. And then, so the only challenge with buying vintage glass is finding a wide angle lens cheap. That's good. Um, so you're gonna pay a couple $100 for a good, like a 24 f2.8 Zuiko lens is a couple $100 for one in good condition. Last time I checked, it might be more or less now. That'll give you a 50 millimeter equivalent field of view, which is perfect. It's a perfect lens. The 24 f2.8 is a great adapted lens for any of the Micro Four Thirds. It's sharp, wide open. The 50 millimeter f1.8, very good portrait lens. Beautiful bokeh, beautiful rendering and color, and it's just amazing. And the other group of lenses that are excellent, underrated, and very cheap are the Minolta lenses. The Minolta lenses are also generally very compact and small for Micro Four Thirds use. I mean, they have their monster lenses, like the 50 millimeter f1.4 is pretty heavy lens, but it's a good lens. Uh, I like Minolta and the OM System Olympus Zuiko lenses for adapting lenses. I have a lot of Nikon glass that I've adapted. Generally, their longer lenses are better. Like the Nikon 105 f2.5 is awesome. It's not too big. It's heavy, but it's not too big. The Olympus one or the Nikon 135 f3.5 is good. I also have the Minolta 135 f3.5. I think it's a 3.5. I have the Minolta and the Nikon. They're both the Minolta one is smaller and lighter, but you have to stop it down to like f5.6 to get any sharpness. If you shoot that wide open at like f3.5, it's very soft. Uh, it'll be fine for like artsy fartsy type images, but other than that, it's soft, right? So you have to stop it down. The Nikon 135, it's heavier lens, bigger, has a built-in lens. Well, so does the Minolta. Uh, just whoops. All right. Yeah. Dropping everything. Let me just give you some perspective. This is the and I'll take the cap off. So the Nikon glass is significantly larger. Let me line these up right. It is significantly larger. It's hard to tell on camera, right? But you can see the Minolta glass is smaller. And is that focused in all the way? Yeah. Because this will focus out. The focus breathing is horrendous on these, I think. Let me extend these all the way out. All the way extended out, it's still larger, right? In the front elements. But this one has a built-in lens hood. They both have built-in lens hoods, which is really nice. But the Nikon is sharper, clearly sharper, wide open, significantly so. Stop them both down to f5.6, f8, about the same. But all of them, Minolta glasses are smaller. And then you put the adapter on it, right? For micro four thirds. The flange distance for the Minolta glass seems to be smaller too. So not only is the adapter flange distance shorter, the lenses are smaller on the Minoltas. Because the Nikon, this is a Nikon 200 millimeter f4, excellent vintage glass, built-in lens hood. I finally I found my what do you call these things? Focal reducer. But it's also an adapter for Nikon to uh micro four thirds. Now where'd my four thirds adapter go? Oh. Yeah, the flange distance is about the same. It's about the same either way. I thought the Minolta flange distance was shorter, but it's not based on this. Maybe even this might even be a millimeter deeper on the Minolta. So I take all that back. Uh, but anyhow, that's the way I would go. 135 Nikon f3.5, excellent. Nikon 105 f2.5, excellent. Olympus Zuiko 50 millimeter f1.8, 24 millimeter f2.8, all excellent. The only gap, right, is between 50 and 100. I don't have any recommendations other than maybe, yeah, the 85 millimeter range. Vintage wise, I don't have, I mean, you can't really go wrong with any of them. If you go Nikon or Canon, I'm not familiar with any Zuiko 85s. That's a focal range I don't own, so I can't give you any advice on that. But that's the advice I go from 24 up to 135. Those are all excellent lenses. And avoid any zoom lenses. Anything zoom vintage, you have two problems. One, most of them suck. If it's expensive, then it's probably a good zoom lens, which is rare from this era. Uh, but maybe there's a diamond in the rough there. You know, maybe there's a unsung hero in the zoom lens world that's cheap and good, but I don't know about it. But avoid zoom lenses. So that's the first problem. Most of them suck, even though they're cheap. Most of them suck. And then the other problem is setting your IBIS. You know, because you're zooming between, on this case, you're zooming between 35 and 105. You can't set your IBIS. You're gonna have to turn your IBIS off because every time you zoom, the focal length that you put into your IBIS, you have to change it. And that's too much of a hassle. So turn your IBIS off and just go triple your shutter speed or quadruple it if it's a long telephoto lens. So if you're shooting at 100 millimeters, set your focal shutter speed to 1/400th of a second on micro four thirds. Then you'll get sharp images, or you won't get motion blur anyway. Drop something on the floor. Okay, that's my experience with vintage glass. And a lot of vintage glass, you know, like what'd you say, garage sales and stuff, those are the best places because a lot of times they take care of their stuff. Unlike me. If I ever have a garage sale, don't buy nothing from me as far as gear goes. Although I do need to sell my M1 Mark III here soon. That camera I can vouch for is actually in excellent condition. Oh, I love the vintage lens caps too. They just don't make them like this anymore. Just the lens cap is so much nicer. Never mind the build quality of all these things, right? Okay. Um, yeah, the Pentax. I'm not familiar with any of the Pentax glass, although I hear a lot of good. There's so much good vintage glass out there. Uh, you can get a whole cabinet full of them and not have one bad lens in that cabinet, right? For next to nothing, relatively speaking. And I have a Sigma 150 to 600 and a Canon 1.4x on my G9 Pen F and EM1 Mark II. I use a Meta. Yeah, the Metabones I hear is very good. I've thought about doing that instead of buying the 300 f4. Is getting one of those autofocus adapters for the Canon lenses. I hear the Nikon ones suck, but the Canon ones I hear are pretty good, autofocusing. But I'm still probably going to go native Olympus 300 millimeter f4. Um, but it'd be fun to try something like you've set up there, right? Um, because you can do it. You can buy a 300 f4 Canon for like $500, which is an excellent piece of glass. Spend another 200-300 for the AF adapter, and then you got a setup for about a quarter of the price. I just don't know if it'd be able to handle the 25 frames per second, but if it can do 10, if it can do 5, that might be an awesome budget way to get into telephoto photography. Okay, let me go up to where I left off. Bear with me. Yeah, the Pen F is great, Mike. Yeah, talk 3 times faster. I wish I could. But the beauty of it is if you're watching this stream, just hit the 2x or 3x or whatever multiplier and you can watch a 2-hour stream in about 30 minutes, right? And get just as much information. Same goes for any of my videos. If it's like a 20-minute video, you can watch it in 5 minutes. Because I don't talk very fast. And if you can that's my problem is I can't keep up with a lot of the kids today when they're talking to me. They'll just start blah 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 blah. Blah. I'm like, oh, just slow down. What did you say? Like, why are you talking so fast? Or, they want to show me something on their phone and they put it right up to my face. And I'm like, look, just back it off a little. I can't see that close. They just don't understand yet. They'll know. One day they'll understand. Uh Thinking about getting a yeah, I have one, thanks to David Tellett. Very generously sold that to me for cheap. Practically just gave it to me for all intents and purposes. He gave it to me, but it's a wonderful camera. I love it. It's so much fun to shoot with. And then John says the only problem with the adapted lenses on OMD is that you have to double the lens focal length. The Zuiko 35 to 105 is effectively a 70 to 210. Yeah. Is it a problem or an advantage? Depends on how you look at it, right? And that goes back to my point. The wider you get with vintage glass, the more expensive it gets, right? And that's the challenge. And David Tellett has some advice. The Super Takamar 50. Oh, I've heard good things about that. Yeah. Oh, that's right. You got the X Pro 3 now. That's awesome. We'll have to go out again soon. After I get my taxes done. Minolta f2 135. Yep. I bet that's excellent. It's probably a monster lens though. Um, Currently playing with an old Pentax MX. Oh yeah. That is a nice little camera. Solid, all metal, right? That man, if I could just collect cameras, you know that Mattias Burling or who is I forget his name. He always buys these cameras like this. He did a review, I think, on the MX. He's got like this two camera rule. Like he only has two cameras. Like, how do you do that? I mean, I I just love cameras, especially if they're very cheap like that, like a couple $100. Why would you sell it? Just hang on to it and use it time to time just for fun. But anyway, yeah, that's yeah, 5 bags for one camera. That's funny. Yep, I think we all do, right? Uh, OM should release. Oops. Sometimes I click these things to show them and they don't show. OM should release a Pen F with black and white sensor. Yeah. Probably they'll probably double the price though. Probably be like a $4,000, $5,000 camera. They want to compete with Leica. Good luck. Uh See what I mean? Like you've had the pen up for 3 years and you didn't know there was a vignette. It's like those little things, right? That I don't know. I just have a knack for finding. It's like, oh, did you guys know this one little thing? People are like, oh no, I didn't know that. That's awesome. Okay, I'm gonna scroll down a little bit. If I missed a question, oh, Edward's leaving. Okay, Ed, we'll see you later. I know that was like an hour ago, but uh missing your photo editing sessions. Any chance? There's a chance. There's a chance. Now that my computer's running, because I've had spotty problems between OM Workspace and my computer, which are independent of each other. Okay, one problem was not causing the other and vice versa. Oh, my computer. Um, okay, I'm going to scroll down to some more recent stuff here. So this was an answer to my question earlier. We value your opinion and the lengths you go to answer out questions. And Rob Trek, what you're doing is perfectly fine. Okay, so I'll just take my time with the answers then and try not to ramble. Because, you know, when I start talking, sometimes I'll start to ramble, which might drift off into a rant. But uh, I'm thinking about getting the Pen F. Oh, sorry. I've seen that. Oh, the Helios 50 millimeter M42 mount. M42, not don't confuse that with M Micro Four Thirds. M42 is a screw mount. Yeah, I've heard the 55 Takumar. Yeah, these are all great vintage lenses. They're kind of known for their swirly bokeh, and that I think that's why he's bringing these up. At least the Helios. I'm not sure about the Takamar. Okay. Oops, I see something here. Ronnie. Ronnie says, "Hey Rob, I want to start to print some photos. Do you recommend any good printer to start or better use print service?" Um, I got a couple of thoughts on that. I had an excellent printer. It's an old XP 800, which finally died on me after many, many years of use, 9 years, I think. Um, so there's a couple of ways to go about it, right? You can buy a printer for photo printing, but the you have to stick with the original ink because I found the generic inks, while the color reproduction is pretty close, if not exactly the same, but close enough that you're not going to be able to tell a difference sometimes if you get generic ink, is the longevity of those prints just fade versus the original OEM ink. I buy Epson, does not fade. Hold on. I I started using generic inks, and this is faded. This one is clearly faded. When I printed them out originally, they were beautiful. Uh, Generic ink, faded. So if you're going to be printing yourself, you got to think about the ink investment. It's not it's not a small amount. It's pretty significant. Uh, so what I did is I went with these. Depends on what your budget is for a printer, right? I think Thomas Heaton has an excellent video on why would anybody want to have a printer or print their own prints. So I suggest you watch that. He brings up a lot of excellent points. Um, his math was a little funky, but you can do the math for your own with your own scenarios that you think you might be printing. Because it worked out, the way he worked it out was it was just as cheap, if not the same price to print at a printer than to print his own prints at home. When he added up the price of the printer, the price of the ink, the price of the paper, never mind the time spent and calibrating and all of that. So what I did is I went with these EcoTank printers that you can buy. I can buy Epson original ink for like 60 bucks and it'll last me forever. I mean, I've had this printer 6 months, a year, whatever. I've had this printer a while now. I'll just show it to you. It's a freaking nightmare in my house right now. Okay, this is my printer. You see on the bottom left where the ink tanks are? That's like, I forget how many milliliters of ink that is, but you just fill the tanks. You don't replace cartridges. And this is just an office printer with just 4 inks. Nothing fancy. So the prints don't come out as contrasty. The blacks are not quite black. The previous printer I had was a photo printer, had 5 inks, and it had a photo black ink. So the blacks came out really black, and the contrast, the images popped a little more. This printer here with 4 inks gets me about 90% there. But that extra 10% feels like 1,000%. because the blacks are so black on a printer that has 5 or more ink cartridges. They have 6 ink cartridge printers and up, right? I don't know what how far they go, but they have a lot of ink cartridges. Uh, Epson has a photo printer with, I think it's 5 or 6 ink cartridges, or not cartridges, but tanks. You can buy the ones that have the tank refills that are much more economical by far. You don't have to worry about the cost per print and running out of ink as often. But it's like uh it's like $1,000 for that printer. I don't know, it's expensive, right? And so you pay a little more upfront, like you pay double because they have the same printer in a cartridge version that's like half the price. But then they make it up selling you ink. You can, but I still recommend you buy the tank type, the eco type, and do that. Uh, and for me, what I'd recommend first is probably go buy one of those $100, $200 printers. Canon has a $200 photo printer that'll it just prints up to 8.5 by 11, but it has 6 or 8 ink cartridges. It's a photo printer. I forget which one. It's a Pixum or something. Um, but Canon has a very good photo printer for cheap, and the ink is expensive as always. But buy one of those now and see how often you actually print your photos, even at 8.5 by 11. That's the maximum I print anymore. I had a 13 by 19 printer before that, but I found myself rarely printing that large. And then the ink dried up, and the printer's junk now. And I only got a few large prints out of it. But the 8.5 by 11 EcoTank type printers are excellent in terms of cost per print in the long run. You pay more for the printer up front, but you save a buttload on ink. I've printed so many photos with that EcoTank printer. I would have never been able to do that with the cartridge type. But I want to buy the EcoTank printer for photos because it prints better quality photos. I almost did it, but then I said, you know what? I'm just printing for myself. These are like 90% there. It's fine. 8.5, 11 is the biggest I'm ever going to print. If I want a bigger print, go to a printer. That's all I can say is go to a printer. You can go to Walmart. It's pretty cheap. And you can get pretty decent photos. I've seen people print from Walmart with excellent results. You can go to a lab. There's lots of photo labs online that you can print from that do great. So if you're going to print large on canvas or metal prints, you can get all fancy right online. I would do that, but for stuff at home, 8.5 by 11 or 4 by 6, I've shown this binder a few times where I just print my 8.5 by 11. These are two of my favorite prints that I printed on my office printer. It's a 4 ink office printer, but it's EcoTank. And I've printed so many photos with that printer, and the ink, you saw the ink, it's still 80% full. I mean, it's not just this album, but I got another album in the living room that I keep that I look at time to time. I have a couple more albums there. Then I have the little Instax type size prints that I keep that I print, you know. And this is all just for fun, for me. Nobody nobody's ever gonna look at these other than me. But I like to print, and just have little albums like this and keep these things everywhere. I mean, it's a lot of clutter, but I like it. If you saw James Pops' recent video, he had the exact same little book, a little flap here, uh, with all his little prints. This is actually an Instax print here. So that's what I recommend. Just print 8.5 by 11 at home, and then anything larger, take to a print shop and get it done. It'll be more cost effective. And it won't take, because those large printers, those 13 by 19 or 24-inch printers, you need a freaking corner of your house to use one of those. I mean, it's not like those are big ass printers. That little office printer just sits in a little corner, nice little tight space, in my little tiny small studio office here. It's perfect. Um, so I'd recommend there's a Canon Pixma. It's a couple $100. That has 6 inks or 8 inks. That's a really good printer to start with. The Epson Expression printers are very good. Print very good quality. What I like about those is they have multiple trays, so you can put in 5x7, 4x6 prints in one tray, paper in one tray, and then 8.5x11 in a separate tray, and you don't have to get up there and switch things manually and swap paper out. The Epson Expression printers are excellent. The cartridges are freaking expensive, but the printing and the convenience and the size, everything about the Epson Expression printers are awesome, and everything's calibrated. You buy Epson paper, it doesn't cost much more than generic paper. You buy Epson paper, you buy the Epson ink, you print something every week to keep the print heads clear in color, and uh, and it does excellent. You don't have to sit there and swap paper. With this office printer I have now, it has one tray. And I have to, anytime I want to change to 4x6 prints, um, I have to take the paper out, put the 4x6 paper in, reconfigure the printer on the printer itself. For some reason, I haven't figured out how to do it in the software. It's a pain in the ass to do that, but I don't do it very often. I usually just print 8.5x11, but it's a pain. But I do print a lot of 4x6 as well. I like matte paper for the black and whites, and glossies I like to use for photos. And I just buy the value glossy. Like I said, it's just for me. But make sure you use original ink, because over time, I found the generic inks have faded on me. So I hope that helps. Any Epson Expression printer will keep you pretty happy. Um, or the one Canon. And buy paper specifically made by Epson or by Canon, whichever brand. Buy the same brand paper, because it's all calibrated from the factory. You don't have to worry about your color workflow when you buy the same paper for the same printer. Okay, then your prints will be more accurate color wise. And I don't have this lens, but I want it. I think it's an awesome lens. I've never heard one bad thing about that lens. Because CNH is asking, does anyone have an opinion about the Olympus OM-1 9 to 18? I've not heard one bad thing about it. Pixma G3000. Okay. Also tank for cheaper photos. Yeah. Yeah, the Canon Pixma and the Epson Expression brands. Excellent photo printers. But if you're like me and just printing for yourself and 90% quality is good enough, you can get an office printer pretty cheap. And what is this? Music Sound Gear. I agree. I have the Epson EcoTank. Generic inks are garbage. Yeah. They print nice at first. But man, after, I can tell you this one is less than 2 years old and it's completely faded. This was a rich, vibrant blue sky at the top. Like, I don't know why this corner is still blue, but you can see this corner is still blue. That's what this whole sky was originally. Ugh. And I should give credit to, um, see the blue? That whole sky was blue like that. This is a Nick Carver photo that I wanted to print a small one so I could look at it because I really love his photography and I wanted to try to emulate it. So I wanted to see how it looked on print. I mean, technically, I think I owe him money for this because I printed, but this was like a thumbnail image. It wasn't even a full-size image. But I took one of his thumbnails and printed it, and I wanted to see how it looked on paper rather than on a screen. But Nick Carver YouTube channel is awesome. Okay, oh, Marco is here. Marco, how you doing? You're always late. Except that one time last week. Um, okay, give me a second. Let me catch up on the chat. DeMarcin is here. That's awesome. And this is my EcoTank printer has 5 photo black, but the new model ET8, yeah. Yeah, that's those ET for EcoTank, right? 8550 and 8500. Ugh, tempting me, but I'm just gonna let it go. I'm 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 pretty content with the images I'm getting now. Except my black and whites aren't quite as punchy because the blacks aren't quite black. I don't know why that is. If I buy a second printer, it's going to be one of those. I'll probably get a 13 by 19 again. Dark, you want me to do a Trek rant? I don't even know what I'd rant about. But some of the things I want to do is like I want to do some skits. Because there's just certain personalities on YouTube that are very well, let me just say imitation is the highest form of flattery. Like I would be easy to imitate, right? Like you could just put a picture up of Garfield the cat on the screen and talking and animated Garfield and that would be me, right? Or oh, I always pictured now I'm drawing a blank. Drawing a blank. Matty Salanto would be like James Bond. He looks a lot like Daniel Craig to me. Like you could see Matty Salanto out there, right? Swinging off a helicopter and fighting, people off and mowing them down with his little PPK. Uh, all right, so I'm gonna scroll down a bit. Oh man, we're at 2 hours. Okay. um, a spoof of the angry photographer. Oh my God. I don't want to do that. On the one hand, I'm just making fun because I like their channels. On the other hand, I don't want to offend anybody either, you know, because some people would take it the wrong way, possibly, right? Oh, I guess this is a question for me. I have a ton of 3R, 4R. I guess those are the small ones. Is it better to scan it using a scanner or take photos of them using the Olympus high-res mode? I'd probably scan them, because when you put it down on a table, you have to watch out for reflections and stuff, and also getting the sensor parallel with the photo and the photo being flat. There's all kinds of challenges just taking a picture of a picture. I mean, it can be done and done well, but if you have a scanner, I've scanned a few images with my scanner, flatbed, and they come out perfect every time. Whereas if you're trying to just take a picture of a picture, there's a lot more involved, right? And there's really no reason to do high res on an old photo like that. Um, but I don't know, 3R and 4R size. I'm assuming that's small, but let me look that up. 3R size photo. Let me see what that is. 3R. Yeah, 3 by 5. 4R is 4 by 6. Yeah, for small photos like that, you don't need high res. I would just scan it and just save yourself all the headaches of focusing and parallel and reflections and glare and all that. Ooh, I love spaghetti and lasagna. I do. Oh, I guess David uses his cell phone, iPhone, Google Photo Scan app. Interesting. I guess that would work. Hmm. Oh, does the angry photographer never talk about photography anymore? Ken Wheeler? I don't know. I haven't watched his channel a long time. I mean, once in a while, a thumbnail pop up, and you're right. It doesn't seem photography related, so I don't even click on it. Like some of his titles are like, "Do not watch this video." I'm like, okay, fine, so I don't watch it. Why would somebody put a title like that? Do not watch this video. Okay, I'm not going to watch it then. I mean, there's so many good things to watch on YouTube and so many things you watch that sucked. If somebody tells you not to watch it, why waste your time? I can tell you how much time I've wasted watching YouTube. Just wasted my time. 3 minutes, 5 minutes at a time. Whole day will go by. It's like a death by a thousand cuts. They just get you here and here and here. And by the end of the day, what have you learned? Nothing. You should have been out shooting instead. Oops, I think I saw. Okay, let me address Marco a little bit. So, my computer, I've wasted 3 solid days trying to fix this thing. And I've done everything. I did the typical, SCF scan now, the DISM, clean, repair, all of that. The boot sector is fine, you know, uh, no issues there. And then I went through 1,000 different drivers. I updated all the drivers, meaning I deleted the ones that were there and updated it with the ones that were recommended by ASUS. The ASUS recommended drivers and not the drivers you get online, like through these driver update softwares. And then I eliminated, so I went through 1,000 driver things. I printed off the net boot log, uh, that log and another log. I looked through all these different logs to try to figure out where this thing was hanging. And I finally got it down to where the computer was hanging, because sometimes it'll boot in 10 minutes, sometimes it takes 40 minutes to boot. I mean, it's a little bit random, and that's partially why it's taking so long, because you fix something, you reboot, then I'm waiting 10 to 30 minutes before it boots up again. Um, but I narrowed it down to just the kernel process in the final boot up sequence, where it's most likely a driver issue or a registry problem. Like the registry is corrupted or has something's not right in the registry. So it's not in the boot section. It's not. I made notes. I went through so much. This is not photography related at all, but this is something Marco can. Uh, this is not it. Well, anyway, 3 solid days, and what I should have done from the beginning, and I was trying to avoid it because I downloaded the Media Creator tool to try to overwrite my current copy of Windows without losing all of my apps and data. Um, and it wouldn't install. It would not overwrite my current edition of Windows. Uh, where's my mouse? Let's see if I can find it. Just to share with you some of the crap. Uh, how to, no. So I ran into this problem, right? Windows couldn't install, so we set everything back. So that's another like hour and a half wasted when I tried to use the media creation tool. And then I went in and tried to diagnose what this problem was. Uh, so they said that, I don't know, some people were saying take out one of your memory sticks and yada. So I tried a bunch of different crap. None of that worked. And let's see. So finally, I tried to install a fresh copy of Windows. And I got that error, not the same error, but I got a very similar error again. And it reset my computer back to the way it was. Ugh. It just would not install Windows 10, even from scratch, right? So at this point, um, let me, where's my mouse? So at this point, I um, I said screw it. So I created a USB. I found a USB drive, like in the bottom of a drawer. I created a USB drive with a install thing of Windows, media for Windows, and booted from the USB drive and installed Windows fresh and clean, wiping out all of my apps and data. Of course, I have backups. I lost a couple of folders on my desktop. I forgot to back up. Not a big deal, I think. I'm not sure. I'll never know, right? But other than that, I didn't lose any data in the process, but I had to reinstall all of my apps. So when I installed Windows from the USB drive, I got a nice clean install. And then I spent the next 3 hours reinstalling all of my apps and Asus recommended drivers because I have an Asus laptop. And it's been running like a brand new computer. Like it boots up like this now. Like so nice. But that's eventually what ended up happening. And I tell you, man, that's 3 solid days though of just doing nothing but just getting bloodshot eyes trying to fix this freaking thing. Oh, I didn't want to go to Windows 11 yet. Um, yeah, should have went to Windows 11. I just didn't want to go to Windows 11 yet because I heard some compatibility issues with some software, and I was so tired at some point that I knew everything I had worked with Windows 10 just fine. So when Windows 11 is available for my PC as a free upgrade, because when I go to Windows Update, it says your computer is compatible. We'll let you know when it's ready. So I'm just going to wait. I'm in no hurry because, on my computer, I want to get things done. I don't want to, I just, oh my God. Anyway, um, you can go from a blank drive to all apps in an hour, huh? Wow. I don't know how you do it. It took me about 3 hours. I mean, partially because once I installed the Windows, it had to go through like a bazillion updates. And actually it didn't update even to the latest version. It only updated to like 20H2. I think there's a 21H2 out now, right? I was on 21H2 before I installed, but now it's only going up to 20 and it says I have all the up any I don't care anymore. It's just I'm just so and then installing Adobe, you have to download everything, right? That took time and then upload. So I had to install my Adobe products, my Topaz products, my DxO products, my TurboTax product, my Quicken product, and then of course my Faststone and my DaVinci Resolve, and then Inkscape and Photoscape, and probably some other stuff I've forgotten about. But I recorded I recorded everything that was installed on my computer before, so that I'll look through it and see if there's really anything else I want to put back in. But those are the core things that I use, those 7 apps. Everything. Oh, and LibreOffice for my spreadsheet, right? Those are the core things that I use. And then the GeForce Experience installer, and it just adds up. But 3 solid hours and I was back up and running. Oh my God. That's what I should have done. Windows ME. Man, that's really old school, man. I remember ME. Oh, I don't know how you do that with the latest build. I just used whatever I had. I can't anyway, I got it done. Yeah, if you have the latest build already and it installs like that to start with, that would have saved me probably at least a half an hour or an hour on installing. But that's what I should have done from day one, is just because it only took me about 15 minutes to back up the files that I wasn't sure that I had backed up. I'm sure they were backed up on my other drive, but I didn't want to, I just couldn't dig in and find it. So I just copied it over. So it took about 15 minutes to copy over like 10 gigs of data. So I didn't lose any data that I'm aware of. But let's see. Yeah, the apps, the problem is Adobe you have to download, right? You can't like just put their apps on a drive. And DaVinci Resolve updates every week, it feels like. So I did download that recently, so I was able to pull that off a drive. But Quicken, you have to download off the site. TurboTax, you have to download. You can't just, because of all these updates constantly. Anyway, Um, I got it done. I'm up and running. I had to reconfigure my OBS a little bit, but I cleaned that up a lot too. It's amazing how sloppy things get in terms of keeping data and everything everywhere, right? I don't know why I'm talking about computers now, but all right, I think it's time to go. You guys, um, buy me a Mac instead of buy me a coffee. I'm not buying Mac. It's not happening. Never, ever. Well, never say never, but I can't do it. But I'll say that my little iPad Pro that I bought about a year and a half ago, I just use it to check email and stuff, but it's been pretty solid. Doesn't bother me with updates every day, things like that. Just little things, right? And I finally got used to using it, but I can't imagine doing real work on it. It's just too many, too many differences, little things here and there. Ah, Rob, on your next photo walk, can you vlog that with friends and all? Want to see how fun it is. I don't have any friends. I mean, I have the photo club and we're all friends there, but it's a different thing when you say, "Are you want to be on my YouTube channel out there on the in the internet, right?" I don't know how many people would be willing to do that. Uh, but friends outside of the photo club, I don't have any. Maybe one, two. That's why I told David Crooks I got to make an effort to make more friends because I keep telling David the same old stories over and over again. um, okay, I'm tired. I'm gonna go. You guys have a great and DeMarcum, one last thing. I did read your other question you had where I asked you if you could rephrase that. I'm still not quite sure. I think I understand what your question is. I'm not 100%, but I'll try and answer that. I've printed it out. I have all these questions for everybody. I have a special guest next week, Sunday. So definitely be back next Sunday. It's a very special guest. Somebody you guys may or may not know, but definitely recommend you stay tuned for that coming this next Sunday. I'll be back Thursday, um, probably, but we'll see. I'm right now my brain is mush. So thanks everybody for coming in. Again, if you'd like to support the streams, the channel, everything I do, it's greatly appreciated. I have my link over here, and I'll be back most likely on Thursday. You guys have a great week. Thanks for tuning in. And I'm gonna try and have an end screen this time and not mess it up. Let's see. What looks fancy here? Uh, let's try this one. 10 seconds. All right, guys. Have a good week.